And we are recording.
This
is December 15, 2020. This is the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Complaint Committee. We are meeting remotely. Shall I call the roll?
Yes, please.
Member Schmidt?
Present.
Member Schmidt present. Member Yankee?
Present.
Member Yankee present. Chair Hinsey?
Present.
Chair Hinsey present. We have a quorum. Do we have any agenda changes?
Do you have any agenda changes that you've heard about, Madam Clerk?
I was not informed of any.
All right. Then we will. Would you like to read meeting decorum and remote access information?
Certainly. Remote access to information and participation. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N3320 declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak and Mayor London N. Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. The Sunshine Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and/or menacing behavior may be asked to leave.
All right. Call item, I guess it's 2.
Item number 2, approval of the November 17, 2020 and December 2, 2020 Complaint Committee meeting minutes. I have a copy of the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or additions they'd like to include?
I have one thing here, Cheryl.
Yes.
For the December 2nd meeting,
Hang on.
delete the agenda. It showed it starting at 3:35, but your minutes show it at 3:30. So I think they should probably match.
Yeah.
The meeting was called to order at 3:36.
No, above that.
Yeah,
Above
I see it
where
at 3:30.
Yeah, so it was the agenda had posted it at 3:35.
You know what? When I posted the agenda or tried to post the agenda, the time kept jumping on me, and it left it at 3:30. Did it come out as 3:35?
I'm looking at the agenda right now, and the one that was posted said 3:35.
All right.
So they should match.
Okay, that's fine. I will do that. I will take care of that. Okay.
Any other member comments on the minutes? Member Smith?
No comment on the minutes.
Just asking, no pressure. All right.
Do we have any public comment on the minutes?
Member Yankee, is that you?
Yes, I said I'd move to approve them.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Smith, public comment on the minutes. Last call for public comment on the minutes. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hang on a second. Okay, item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
I have public comment, but isn't there another item first?
Oh shoot, I gotta get a timer.
I think we need to call the roll for item 2. I don't think we've called the roll quite yet. Members, did we call the roll for item 2? I just have not.
Yeah, I thought we called it.
Okay, we did.
Right, and so we did approval of both minutes, and so I think we're on public comment now.
All right. Cheryl,
Okay.
you got your timer ready to go?
Yep, whoever wants to talk can.
Okay, go ahead, Anonymous.
Hi, this is Anonymous. I don't think you've actually called the roll for the previous item. I believe you only called for motion, second, asked for public comment. There was no public comment and then went on. That was my memory, but maybe I'm wrong. But regarding my public comment itself, as you may know, there is a group of public employees within the city called the Custodians of Records Working Group. They meet apparently quarterly, and last week on Tuesday, December 8th at 2 p.m., they met, and I got the agenda of that meeting as a public record. And I just wanted to tell you what they were doing at this meeting. So at this meeting, David Steinberg, who is the public records person for Public Works, was apparently, I guess, running the meeting. The second item was metadata, which, as you know, you've ruled many times in favor of, discussed by Hank Heckel, who works for London Breed, and the city attorney. The third item was SOTF amendment proposal by Mr. Steinberg. And as far as I can understand, this is actually my amendment or my proposal to amend the Sunshine Ordinance they were discussing from a further records request. Then SOTF unresolved cases by Mr. Steinberg, Ms. Thompson, who I believe works for OEWD, and Mr. Heckel. Anonymous text requests by Mr. Heckel and the city attorney. Then the interesting one, which is SOTF openings by Mr. Heckel, and finally index of records by Bill Barnes, who is with the city administrative office. And I think that it's interesting that they're discussing what openings they have. I believe that the purpose of having SOTF members is not to help city employees, but instead to maximize public access. And that's the purpose of this task force. No matter what the city employees do, I hope you continue in enforcing that purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anonymous. Any other general public comments?
If I could quickly just jump in here, I got confused by what Anonymous was saying. I think we took roll call for the meeting, but we didn't take a roll vote for the minutes.
Vote, yeah. So, Madam Clerk, if we could go back to item 2 real quick, and if you call the roll.
Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Chair Hensy?
Aye.
Chair Hensy, aye. The motion to approve the minutes with changes passes. Then that's both sets of minutes, right?
Yes.
Correct. Okay, good. Thank you for noting that. I apologize. That was my error. So do we have any more public comment?
Any additional general public comment? Thank you, Madam. Closing. Hearing no other public comment. Public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, would you call the next item?
Item number 4, file number 20033. Complaint filed by Anonymous against London Breed for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 29-5 by failing to maintain a Prop G calendar.
Anonymous here?
I am here.
All right, is Mr. Heck? It's someone from the mayor's office. Someone from the mayor's office, Mr. Heckel, are you here?
Yeah.
Hello? Mr. Heckel? Hank?
Mr.
I
Heckle?
believe he just spoke.
He just did. We didn't hear
Hi, I'm
him.
here. This is Hank from the mayor's office. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
great.
All right,
We weren't sure we heard you.
let's get started.
Great. I'm here. Thank you.
Let's get started. When you're ready with the timer, Cheryl, let Anonymous know, and he can begin when he's ready.
Go ahead, Anonymous.
Thank you. I'm sure you're going to get tired of hearing my voice by the end of this meeting, so I'm going to try to make this quicker than normal. We're going to begin on page, this is item 4 of PDF, begin on page PDF 66 or footer page P74. So just to give you some context this is about the mayor herself's Prop G calendars. The only respondent is London Breed for reasons I'll explain later. You have prior ruled in your very first ruling, I believe, in my cases in SOTF 19047, ruled that London Breed, Hank Heckle, and the Office of the Mayor violated various provisions of the Sunshine Ordinance for a variety of reasons. The one that's actually relevant here is that the mayor has 2 Outlook calendars, one called Prop G, Mayor, the other one called Calendar, Mayor. Calendar, Mayor is kind of the real Outlook calendar that is used for scheduling things in the future. Prop G, Mayor is specifically made to meet the requirements, the minimum requirements of Proposition G or SF Administrative Code 67.29-5. There were other issues that they didn't provide iCalendar data, summary views, etc., but that's not relevant today. Then just 2 weeks ago in 19103, you ruled that those same 3 respondents also violated the Sunshine Ordinance for not providing future calendars instead of redacting those calendars. And today we're going to ask the simplest question, which is, does that one Prop G calendar actually meet all of the requirements of 67.29-5? And on the bottom slide here of this page, you'll see what the actual words of 67.29-5A are. The mayor shall keep or cause to be kept a daily calendar with the time and place of all of those meetings. And also, if a meeting is not publicly recorded, the calendar shall include a general statement of issues discussed. And that is almost, most of these cases going to be what we're really going to get at, the general statement of issues discussed. And if you remember in your ruling in 19108 against Dennis Herrera, you found that because it says the mayor or the city attorney shall keep or cause to be kept, this is in fact the legal responsibility of the individual elected official or department head. Next page, please. So these are some examples of the entries from the specific designated Prop G calendar, and they do not have a general statement of issues discussed. Meeting with Superintendent Matthews tells you who she met. It does not tell you an issue she discussed. Meeting regarding policy is almost laughable. I mean, it's the vaguest thing you could say. What policy? Homelessness? That's an issue. Finance? That's an issue. Tax? That's an issue. But policy is not an issue. Next page. Senior staff check-in. This is a constant repeated subject line on her Prop G calendar. I believe in some cases they argue that, well, as long as you have a subject line, that's enough. No, it's not. You have to have a, quote, general statement of issues discussed. And the whole point of a Prop G calendar is you only have to create it up to 3 business days after the fact of the actual meeting. So once you know what was discussed, you put that there. And the mayor's office is right. You don't have to give out a whole meeting minutes or a recording. What you have to do is list the statement of issues discussed after the meeting is over. And this doesn't tell you what issues are discussed. On the bottom of this page, you'll see courtesy call. What did she discuss with this mayor? And on the next page, you'll see another senior staff check-in and another meeting with some other public official. But in none of these cases do they tell you what was the general statement of issues discussed. Alternatively, they could tell you that each of these has a public recording, and if there is a way for me to get the recording of all these meetings, that's fine. You'll also notice that the times are pretty random on these meetings. Maybe these are the real times, but if they're not, they do need to correct them, like 2:06 p.m. to 2:39 p.m. Maybe that's the real time. I'm guessing it's actually 2 to 2:30, but at the very least, the general statement of issues discussed are not on these entries. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Mr. Heckle, as soon as Cheryl tells you he's ready, you can begin. Cheryl, are you ready with the time?
Yeah, I was just fixing it right now. Okay. Go ahead, Hank.
Sure. Good evening, members of the Complaint Committee, Chair Hinsey. So I'm Hank Heckel. I'm a compliance officer in the office of Mayor Breed, and I'm here to respond to Anonymous's complaint in the file 20033 regarding the mayor's Prop G calendar. The Office of the Mayor fully supports the requirements of Prop G that are set forth, quote unquote, Prop G calendars as set forth in Admin Code 67.29-5. It is our practice to faithfully keep such a calendar with the requisite information of date, time, place, attendees, and subject matter. We do so. We provide it upon request, updated every 3 days. We have provided Anonymous himself with probably, I would say, many, many hundreds of calendar entries over the course of his series of various requests to our office. A lot of his requests are for the mayor's calendar, and so we've provided that. We don't believe that Anonymous has identified any significant gaps or absences in the required elements of the mayor's Prop G calendar. We generally believe that the provided descriptions are accurate and sufficient. They provide information from which a member of the public could easily discern the general subject matter of the meeting, bearing in mind that the description requirement, as Anonymous conceded, is not something along the lines of a requirement for minutes or sort of a detailed blow-by-blow or laundry list of everything discussed. It's just kind of, what was the meeting about, the attendees. I mean, you can often, discern a lot from sort of who the attendees are. Full agendas aren't required, and neither are minutes. To the extent there may have been some oversight. I understand that Anonymous pointed to there may have been a couple meetings, like meeting with Superintendent Matthews from the Board of Ed. I mean, it does appear that we can add a description to that, which was the meeting was about education, for example. But then some of the other ones, for things, recurring meetings like senior staff check-in calls, I mean, those are regularly occurring calls, usually in the morning with senior staff. And, it's just what it says it is. It's a check-in. I mean, there's no prearranged agenda. It's just, folks sort of dial in and sort of check in on, the sort of urgent issues of the day. And so, there's really there's no sort of set description, other than, that's the purpose of the meeting, and we think that's sufficient. Another entry was a courtesy call with the mayor of Heidelberg, Germany. Something like that. I mean, it's just what it is. It's sort of a, kind of diplomatic formality. It's not like there's any sort of, major policy discussion. It's a courtesy call. So, we do go to, we take the Prop G requirement very seriously. We make every effort to keep it regular, keep it updated, list all the attendees. We make it accurate. To Anonymous's comment about why there are sort of times like, 1:36 or 2:09, sometimes, the mayor's schedule is frequently in flux. And so meetings not every meeting starts exactly on the nose when it's originally scheduled. So we update it, say if the meeting started at 2:06 instead of 2 o'clock. And I think that's indicative of kind of the level of attention we put into the Prop G calendar. So to the extent there are some, maybe gaps like a superintendent meeting, we can certainly amend the calendar in instances like that and provide that to Anonymous. But I think as a matter of practice, we are compliant. That's certainly our intention. That's our practice in kind of as seen in what we've provided to Anonymous in the past. And I'll be happy to take any questions that the committee has. Thank you.
All right. Members, any questions?
I apologize. The chair is unhearable. I don't mean to speak up. I can't hear what she said. So
I was asking if there were any questions.
I'm gonna start out this time first with Anonymous, and this is Member Schmidt. You supplied a few examples of some entries that seem, I'd have to agree, they seem like the description of the substance matter was not really adequate. Is that, to you, if you look at the full range of what you've seen coming from the mayor's office, is that representative of what you're seeing, or are you just picking out like a couple of really egregious examples that we're seeing?
I think the answer to it's both. I am picking the ones that I want to evidence that do not meet the requirement. But I there are definitely times when there is an issue discussed, right? But I don't believe the law requires usually, and I'm happy to provide more examples, but my worry is, let me say this, the egregious ones are the ones I worry most about. The ones where they don't tell us what she's doing, my cynical assumption is that's the ones we don't want to know what she's doing, like meeting regarding policy. And that's my concern. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Couple questions for Mr. Heckel. You had said that with the Matthews meeting, you think that you were thinking about amending the note to put in the word education as being the subject matter. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, hi, Member Schmidt. Yeah, so I mean, I think that one is an example where we would put in a subject line. It seems there was an oversight where it just indicates there was a meeting with Superintendent Matthews, so we would put in something regarding education, which was the subject of that meeting.
Would you put in something more than just the word education?
I mean, it depends on how general the meeting was, or I mean, I believe it was kind of, along the lines of kind of a check-in meeting. So when the mayor meets with department heads or, independent officials like Superintendent Matthews, I mean, these don't happen all the time because these are busy officials. And so, more often than not, it's in the nature of kind of a general discussion of kind of whatever the policy area that person is charged with, kind of, what's the status of, homelessness or street conditions or education, for example.
Okay. Now that meeting is with someone at the school board. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's the superintendent of the school district.
Okay. All right. And are you personally within the group of people who would sort of finalize how this calendar looks and go through at a certain point and fill in these subject matter descriptions?
So generally the way the process works is the mayor's scheduling staff obviously creates her schedule, and then that is kind of the initial basis for the Prop G calendar. So, there'll be a meeting scheduled, in a couple of weeks with Chief Scott, for example, on street safety or something like that. That would be scheduled. And then, if that meeting gets moved around or there's some other topic that's discussed, the meeting can be updated by the scheduling team kind of after the fact, because we have to kind of keep the Prop G updated, which we try to do, and keep it up to date sort of within 3 days. So it'll just be updated to reflect, because there's sometimes things change from the time a meeting is scheduled to the time the meeting takes place. And, senior staff may also consult with scheduling staff about kind of what the topic of the meeting was. And I review the calendars in response to records requests, to make sure that they're in order. And but like I said, I mean, we've provided hundreds and hundreds of entries. I mean, I think we've given anonymous the mayor's calendar probably for months and maybe even over a year. So yeah, it's a lot to review, but yeah, I mean, there are things that, to the extent there's a gap or something, we can fix it. And I can assure you, the lack of a description, for example, for a meeting with Superintendent Matthews, it wasn't some effort to hide something. It was kind of an oversight that the subject line didn't get filled in.
Got it. Okay. You said that if you get a public records request, that you yourself would maybe make some changes to the subject line before you respond to the request. Is that what you? Am I getting that understood correctly?
No, I mean, I think it's generally just like making sure that it's all in order, so that there aren't typos, that the dates are there, the times are there, the meetings. There's a list of attendees where appropriate. Where it's fewer than 10 attendees, the attendees. If I think the subject is kind of insufficient or there isn't a subject, then that might be something that I would talk to the scheduling staff about correcting as well.
You would talk to scheduling staff about it and then get it worked out. Fair? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, scheduling staff, or if we don't know if there's we have to go back and talk to somebody, just to get information about the meeting. But in most instances, it's kind of available from the scheduling team, because they kind of set up the meeting to begin with. Okay.
Now, the process you just described, would you go through that process with you and the scheduling staff if there's not a public records request? Would you go through that same kind of process on every calendar as a matter of course in conducting the public's business?
I think it depends. I mean, I think generally the scheduling staff keeps it in order, and then we have, we get requests pretty frequently, so that, probably every month or so we're kind of looking to make sure it's up to date and kind of ready to be issued.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
All right. Member Yankee, any questions?
I do not have any questions. Dean did a great job. So.
Yeah, agreed. Dean Member Smith covered all my questions. Mr. Heckle, any last words on this item?
For rebuttal, Sharon Z?
Correct.
Sure.
Hang on, we want to time this, Deanna?
Yeah, give me 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Go ahead, Hank.
Okay, thanks. So I think Member Schmidt, his questions kind of elicited a lot of the detail that should give you some background on how this process works. Like I said, we take the requirements seriously. We're not, I think as Anonymous partly conceded, I don't think these, certainly like one or two examples here we can add more detail to. I don't think that's representative of our practice. For example, I think, generally, and maybe if this goes up again, we can, we can even sort of put more of the calendar into the record just to show that our practice is to provide issue descriptions, whether it's homelessness or transportation or something like that, where it's not just a general check-in meeting. I think that Anonymous is kind of making cynical assumptions. I mean, that's his right to do, but I assure you, this is not a matter of hiding the ball. I mean, we provide hundreds of calendar entries with detail, and, we can always go back and correct something. So if there's any further questions, I can address those as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Heckle. Anonymous, do you have any rebuttal? Closing remarks?
Sure, let me know when I may begin.
You may begin.
Thank you. First of all, I don't have to prove bad faith. This is not a willful violation thing. That'll be Ethics Commission, or if it ever passes. I don't have to prove any of that. All I have to prove at this stage is that these records are public records. There's no question these are public records. They're by definition public records. I'll just remind in 19108, I showed I think two entries, and that was sufficient. And the reason is the Sunshine Ordinance is not this kind of approximation where kind of usually they have to do a good job. No, it's there to make sure everything that the government does is known by the public to the extent that the voters have said it is. And I also want to dispute, and I think that's probably the biggest dispute here, about these check-in meetings. I disagree with Mr. Heckel completely. Those are actually the ones, let's say if I got Prop G calendar for the check-in maybe that happened last week. I'm guessing the topics that are being discussed are the statement of issues, right? Issues are COVID-19, homelessness, and maybe like something to do with what's going on with the PUC and the city administrator. I'm just guessing, right? Those are issues. And the reason Prop G is an after-the-fact requirement is because they have up to 3 business days after the date of every entry to put them in. They absolutely do not have to put in what the mayor's position was, what Sean Ellsworth's position was. That's not what I'm asking. That's not required by the law. The law requires a, quote, general statement of issues discussed. It does not ask for subject matter. That's not what it says. And so I would like them to put in the, quote, issues discussed. Finally, amending the calendar does not cure the violation. You held this in 19108. The city attorney's office did that. They said, well, once Anonymous says something, then we'll go back and change these. That's not what the law requires. It required them to do this within 3 business days of the date of these entries. Thank you very much.
All right, members, how should we proceed?
Well, since we're in committee, I would think we probably do want to advance this. I think the ultimate goal here is to sort of up the level of respect for what's required here, and to have somebody, not see this as just an annoyance where they have to put something in to check the box, but to have people realize that they're having a meeting, and what they're meeting about, the issues that they're meeting about, are something that needs to be known to people outside that meeting. And so I kind of see, I don't know if I see this thing as being, something willful or bad faith, but I do see that this needs to get a little better, if not, more than a little better. That's my thought. So I don't have a motion ready, but that's just my discussion.
Agreed. Something a little more substantive in the entries themselves. Member Yankee, any vote?
I'm pretty much in the same place. I mean, I think that, I would say some of these examples here, certainly I wouldn't say meet the threshold of, including a general statement of issues discussed. I mean, obviously I agree with, I think both the petitioner and the respondent that, you don't need an agenda or meeting minutes or anything of that order, but I think, obviously it's very clear that there needs to be a general statement of issues discussed. And so I do think these need to be, tightened up a little bit here, that they are falling short of that threshold. I really don't think there's any dispute over the fact that obviously, we do have jurisdiction here, that these are public records. And so, I think it's worth advancing to the full task force at this point, and then we can have that discussion with the full task force about, what a general issue, what a general statement of issues discussed really means, and how the mayor can make sure that that's, that threshold is met in these entries.
All right. It sounds like, let's see what people think of this.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want me to make a motion?
Sure.
Sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Are we making a motion?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll move that the records are public, that we have jurisdiction rather, that the records are public, and to advance to the full task force for a hearing.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Thanks. Moved and seconded that the records are public. We've got jurisdiction and to move the full task force for hearing.
Fiona, we're not hearing you. You need to try and be more closer to the microphone, I think, if you can.
Is there any public comment on that motion?
Is there public comment on the motion?
Hearing none, public comment is closed. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Chair Hinsey?
Aye.
Chair Hinsey, aye. The motion to find jurisdiction and send to the task force passes. So we want to move on to item number 5.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the next one?
Okay. Item number 5, file number 20040, complaint filed by Anonymous against Amy Hart of the Medical Examiner's Office for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6729-5 by failing to keep or cause to be kept a daily calendar wherein it is recorded the time and place of each meeting or event attended.
All right. Do we still have Anonymous with us?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Okay, hang on a second.
Do we have someone from the medical examiner's office? Someone from the medical examiner's office, are you with us? Cheryl, have we heard from the medical examiner's office at all?
No, I sent about 5 people. When I sent out the agenda, I included about 5 people to the medical examiner's office, including Amy Hart. So,
Okay, members, how would you like to proceed? Should we hear from Anonymous?
I would think we go ahead with it.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hear from Anonymous when you're ready to begin.
Thank you. Let me know when my timer is available.
go ahead, sir.
All right. This is versus Amy Hart, who is either the chief medical examiner or the acting chief medical examiner. It's unclear. Also, I have asked administration twice that the exact wording on your agenda is not what I put in my complaint. It should be very similar to what's on the mayor. It's failure to keep or cause to be kept a compliant property calendar. That's what I put in my complaint. So please do correct that in the minutes. In this case, we will begin on item 5, PDF page 34, which is footer page P128. I'm not going to repeat what all the law says. I mean, I can if you need me to, but there's no reason to. You can just read what the law says. The ones that are not against London Breed, all of these are part of the standardized audit I did of almost all agencies, where I asked for a property calendar, non-property calendar, future calendar, past calendar, email sent and received. And I think they've heard that before. We're only discussing the property calendar response here. If you go to the next page here, you'll actually see what they gave me. This is woefully inadequate. This was provided 3 business days or later, which after November 10th to November 17th, which means by law they have to have the information. Frankly, I don't know what I'm looking at in the top half of the page. It appears to be some scribbles in a handwritten calendar. I assume it says call someone, and on the November 14th, I think it says manager meeting, but I have no clue. And in the Outlook calendar, the only readable actual meeting here, it says, is at 11 a.m. on November 12th. There was a go-to-meeting invitation. None of these things appear to have attendees, at least that I can infer from looking at this page. They don't have any subject matter. which the real word is statement of issues discussed. They don't have, I mean, I don't even know if on November 12th after 11 a.m. there were other meetings that just don't fit on this summary page. And you've already held in 19047. You can't give summaries if there's more information on the detail page. I think this is just completely inadequate. If I remember in writing to the task force, but after the deadline, they did say, oh, well, here's the Outlook entries for GoToMeeting invitation IA. And it might be somewhere in this packet, I'm not sure. But one, that was after 3 business days. It was long after, it's more than 1 year after the request response was due in this records request. And moreover, even in that case, it has no indication of what the statement of issues are. What does GoToMeeting invitation IA mean? There are all these calls that she apparently did on the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. We have no idea who she called. Teleconference meetings do count. We have no idea what she discussed or who she discussed it with. So I think this is completely non-compliant. I don't really have anything else to say. Thank you.
All right, last call for a representative from the medical examiner's office. Hearing no representative. Members, any questions for Anonymous?
I don't think I have any questions for him. I mean, this is pretty straightforward.
Right. Member Yankee, just checking in.
I guess just one question. I noticed that when Cheryl sent the email to Amy Hart, it has ADM afterwards, which I think specifies as part of the city administrator's office. I guess my only question would be, is this a department head or not? I don't know if that's, or is it a sub department, so to speak, of like the city administrator. I'm not sure with that, if this is its own city department or not.
Anonymous, are you able to answer?
I can take my position, which is that they responded saying this was a property calendar, and okay. That's all I know. So they claim it is. So, yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't disputed with you, Anonymous, then. Then they did try to turn things over. Okay.
Yeah, they have not stated that Naomi Kelly is instead the department head like some other person did. Yeah.
Right. That's what I was getting to, exactly. Okay, that's the only question I had.
I would follow up on that. You said they have not stated that. Is that, in essence, they haven't said anything on the subject?
It's in the record exactly how they responded. 1 second, let me find the words. I
mean, if they take the position that yes, we're clearly, we're responsible to do this, then I don't know if we need to really delve into it. But I wouldn't want to get too far down the line if we're talking about someone who doesn't have to keep one of these calendars.
Sure. So the exact wording that they responded, you can see it on. Oh, this is item 5, right? I want to confuse. Yeah, this is the chief medical examiner. It's page 12 of the PDF, which is footer page P106, and you can see the office of the chief medical examiner, which apparently is an office, states that the attached records are provided in response to request 1 through 5, and 1, how they call it, is the specific calendar required to be kept by SF Administrative Code 67.29-5 for your department head. And this is their paraphrasing of my request, by the way. My request is much longer, so it's not like they just copy-pasted this. So they claim that these are responsive to requests 1 through 5. And they did not say instead, for example, we have no records responsive to 1, which would be the lawful response, or here are Naomi Kelly's records.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that it's good that we are at least. I like that Matthew brought that up. I think it's a valid issue here, And, you know, who knows, maybe they show up later and at the full task force and they say, hey, we don't even have to keep that kind of calendar. But to me, I would just put that in their basket. They got to do that if that's their defense here. And so I'm not going to worry about it for purposes of today's hearing, because I think that this thing should move forward. No more questions.
Yes. Okay. Anonymous. Oh, okay.
I just want to throw this out there among us to respond to Member Schmidt here. I agree that that's obviously not a reason to hold it up. I'm just wondering, since, you know, there does seem to be several Prop G requests made throughout the city. I'm thinking as maybe as a side item before this makes its way to the full task force, assuming that that's you know, the vote that we take. If it isn't worth asking our DCA to clarify what a department head is for the purposes of this Prop G calendar requirement. I'm just thinking this might be a future issue that's raised when we get before the full task force, and so I'd like to make sure that when it gets there, we have those exact legal definitions so that we don't kind of get derailed in the full hearing stage.
That's a great.
Agreed, and it might be a 5-minute, you know, analysis. It may be very simple. Yeah, but
memo.
Let's definitely let's make that request. I completely agree with that.
Okay.
I fully support that. Cheryl, did you make a note of that, please?
Yeah, I did. We are asking our DCA for a full legal definition of what a department head is in response to these Prop G calendar requests.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so do we want to put that in a motion?
Yeah, I do think we should include that in the motion when we get there.
Let's see if Anonymous has any last words before we see what motion is on the floor. Anonymous?
Sure. I actually support this. I would love to know what a department head is or is not, or at least, let me be clear, what your DCA determined is or is not a department head. You obviously can make your own decision given his or her advice. I would just say, just as in those other cases where there were subcomponents of the ADM, if it turns out that you determine that Amy Hart is not a department head, then the right answer is not here are your records for number one. The right answer is go speak to another department, or actually, if they're actually technically within that department, they actually have to give it to me because I can email any person within the department, as you discussed a few meetings ago. So either way, I don't have anything other than that. But I would love to know whether or not she is or is not a department head myself. Thank you.
All right.
She could be an acting head.
Is there a motion from my colleague?
I'll make a motion that we confirm that the records are public. We have jurisdiction, and we advance this for hearing before the full task force.
Would you like to put in the request for analysis?
I would put it in if that's the way that we make a request to the city attorney. But I would ask the other members if that's how you think we should make that request.
Because the DCAs are no longer providing us with legal memos for these, I think it's worth putting in a motion so that it's very clear to the DCA that we expect this before the full task force. So I would support adding that to the motion.
I think
Thank you. And so let's go ahead and then we have our bases covered. So let's add it into the motion.
Yeah. Okay. Cheryl, would you go ahead and read what you have for the record for the request so that we
Okay.
know?
Shall I read the whole motion?
Sure, go ahead, and then we'll take
All
over.
right. Moved by Member Schmidt, second by Member Yankee, to confirm that the records are public, there is jurisdiction, and to advance this matter to the Sunshine Task Force, and request that our DCA provide a definition of what department head is for the purposes of a Prop G calendar.
That sounds perfect. Is there public comment on that motion? Public comment. Hearing none, public comment is closed. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on that?
Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Chair Hensy?
Aye.
Chair Hensy, aye. The motion to find that the records are public, there is jurisdiction in advance to the full task force, and request that our deputy city attorney provide a definition of department head for the purposes of a Prop G calendar request. Okay,
Alright.
is that it, or did I miss something?
Nope, I think you
Okay.
when you're ready, would you please call the next item?
Okay. Item number 6, file number 20041, complaint filed by Anonymous against Controller Ben Rosenfield for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67295 by failing to keep or cause to be kept a daily calendar wherein it is recorded the time and place of each meeting or event attended.
Alright, do we still have Anonymous?
Okay,
Yes,
hang on.
ma'am.
Okay, get ready.
Do we have a representative from the controller's office?
Yes, good evening, Todd Reachstrom, Deputy Controller.
Perfect. Just a second, Anonymous was 34.
I apologize. It is completely unhearable again, Madam Chair.
Yes, some background noise. When Cheryl will tell you when she's ready to begin.
Can you hear me, Anonymous?
I can
the
hear you,
parties,
yes.
The parties hear me. Mr. Redstrom, can you hear me too, please?
Yes, confirmed.
Okay, great. All right, so our petitioner will begin. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. This is case 20041 versus the controller, Ben Rosenfield. This is item 6 PDF. We can begin on PDF, page 483, or footer page P227. Again, I'm not going to go through. This is the exact same type of request, same date, same everything else. All that changes is the response. I don't believe there's any dispute that the controller is the head of his own department. He even has his own little three-letter acronym, CON. If you go to the next page, this is page 228. This is a meeting that says TED. This is not in any way compliant with a general statement of issues discussed, or the respondent's representative could tell you that this meeting is publicly recorded. Next page. Here it says HOC Policy Group. This is another one of those meetings that happens repeatedly, weekly. But we're not asking what the meeting is. We're asking what was the issue discussed at this particular meeting. And this goes back to the mayor's thing. I want to know, and this is in 2019, so there's no COVID, right? But was COVID what was discussed here? Was homelessness what was discussed here? Maybe HSOC means only one issue, and I don't know that. But the statement of issues discussed should be in here. The other requirements seem to be met because there's quite some other information here. Next page, P230. Supervisor Fewer, that's not a statement of issues. Julie Kirschbaum is not a statement of issues. Next page, one-on-one with Jocelyn Quintos is not a statement of issues. And then the one I care most about, page 232, Mayor Breed's monthly department head meeting. And this is the one I'm going to come back to in all these cases, which is what is she discussing? Not what was her position versus what was Mr. Rosenfield's position. What were the statement of issues discussed at the monthly department head meeting? Probably they're different issues every month. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say. They need to give me a statement of issues discussed. These are clearly public records, so please push this off to the full task force. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Redstrom.
Hang on. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm ready. May I start now?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Todd Reedstrom. I'm the Deputy Controller. I'd like to thank the committee for hearing this tonight. I do want to state for the record that we appreciate this opportunity, as well as Anonymous is bringing us this to our attention. The Controller's Office submitted on December 9th some 109 pages of documentation showing what we did provide Anonymous. We take all public information requests very seriously. We are committed to timely and accurately publicly reporting. We strive to be a model department for transparency, and in that vein, we respond to over 500 public information requests. We also support the 24/7 website access for the public to search the city budget, revenues and expenditures of the city, as well as supplier contracts and payments. We strive and we ensure the city's financial integrity. We promote efficient and effective and accountable government. And I would say with this specific complaint, as well as the noted general statement of issues discussed, we are committed to complying with the Sunshine Ordinance. And I will take the noted examples of Anonymous back to our office and review that with our calendaring staff for Mr. Rosenfield's calendar. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
All right. Do you have more? You still have.
I think you froze there for a moment, Fiona.
Thank you. I was just conferring with Mr. Reedstrom to make sure he was done.
Yeah,
I'm all
he said he was.
completed. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Members, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Member Smith?
Yeah, I'm gonna just sort of ask of the petitioner or complainant. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You just heard what representative of the controller's office said, and it does sound to me like, you know, I know you said earlier that our main job is to, you know, look at violations, et cetera, but we do have within our jurisdiction to try to, you know, give the people in the city sometimes some kind of guidance on what they need to be doing. And so hearing that, you know, they're going to take a little bit of they're going to take a look at this. Is there anything that you think they should be doing better other than what you described just now in your you know, your allotted 5 minutes?
Thank you for that question. I do want to make sure I'm answering the correct question. Do you mean with regards to Prop G calendars, or generally the response to the rest of my request, which is not at issue in this complaint?
Just what's at issue, because I think the only thing that is at issue, I agree, is the Prop G calendar specifically.
Correct. Thank you for that opportunity. I think that if there are meeting attendees, if we're just talking Prop G calendars, there's only like 4 requirements for Prop G calendars. It is the time, the location, and attendees in certain times, and a general statement of issues. It does look like the locations are missing. It's actually in my formal complaint, but yeah, it looks like it's not just the general statement of issues discussed. It's also the locations that are missing. And they do, by the way, have a attendee requirement. If there's anyone outside of their own department, if the total number of people are less than 10, then those other people need to be listed. For example, the staff of Supervisor Fuhr, or even Mr. Rosenfield's own staff. As soon as a meeting goes beyond just your own department, and it's still less than 10 people, you do have to list those people as well. But thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Okay, and one further question. Mr. Reedstrom said, and this is a question to, again, to Anonymous. He said in a letter that they're citing the Times Mirror case. And we didn't really get into this too much, and I'm not sure if it's really a big issue here. But would you take the position here that that case doesn't apply to any documents involving the controller's office?
I would absolutely take that position if that was being used as a defense. I apologize. Is there a page number you want me to look at? Where is this?
Oh, sure. And again, it's not a big. This thing it's a much bigger issue in other situations, but it's the December 9th letter, which is the cover to the 108 pages, where they do have one or two documents where they're talking about meetings with the mayor. And so apparently what they're saying is it's the mayor's security that is still protected by Times Mirror. And
I see what you're saying.
I just wanted to just get see if you have a position on whether Times Mirror would provide them that kind of protection after the, amendments both at the state level and at local level that came, I think, after the Times Mirror case.
Thank you. I agree, and I mean it's in here somewhere in here, but yes, I agree. Times Mirror does not apply. The controller is not the governor. I believe you also did not allow it to apply yourself. This task force refused to allow it to apply to either the mayor herself or the chief of police, and I don't see how the controller could possibly have higher security concerns than that. But by the way, I will, if this goes before the full task force, I will incorporate by reference all of the arguments I made in cases 19112 and 19103, that these kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall of 1, 2, 3, 4 citations, and then they don't actually explain how they apply, it does not actually allow them to redact that information or withhold the records. I do want to be clear, though, just in fairness, my complaint is not about the future calendar, which they withheld, and I don't think you can do whatever you want, that's your right, but I'm not going to argue within this complaint. It will be argued in a different complaint. So that with regard to item 3 is not part of this complaint. So.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
All righty. That concludes our member questions. Mr. Edstrom, you have 3 minutes to give any rebuttal or last words on this item that you might have.
Going to start the timer. Go ahead, sir.
Todd Reachton from the Controller's Office. My remarks stand. We are truly committed to complying with the Sunshine Ordinance. To the degree we limitedly do a redaction or withhold, we've stated that in our letter and have worked with the City Attorney's Office to ensure that we have some guidance on how to interpret. So we believe that we have complied with redaction requirements and also the noted citations. To the degree that the general descriptions need to be included, again, we stand ready to work with you as well as the complainants to make sure that we revisit that effort and scheduling to make sure that transparency and sunshine is upheld.
All right, thank you. Anonymous.
Sure, Ms. Leger, let me know.
Yeah, I'm trying to reset it.
May begin.
Go ahead, sir.
So I'm not in this particular office because I don't have a pattern of complaints against this office. I'm not alleging any kind of bad faith or willfulness, but I don't need to. I don't need to prove that in order to prevail. That's only if it goes to the Ethics Commission. But I do want to point out, I have offered, I believe, every single respondent today almost identical offer that if they agree in writing, in a signed writing, signed by the official or department head who is responsible for this, to produce the corrected versions of every single example that I provide, and to agree that this, the lack of description of these entries is a violation of 67.29-5, and to agree that they will produce proper records from here on out. They will record all the required information, and finally to agree that I will dismiss these complaints if they do so. The reason for this is very specific. I've been asked, why don't I just dismiss these complaints once they kind of agree with me? Unless the person actually agrees in writing, I cannot use this as proof like I could your own order of determination or a signed letter from that official, that the next time they do this, it is willful. And that is absolutely my purpose. I audit these agencies. They have a chance to do it right. Some of them did it right the first time. Many of them didn't. I believe you will find these to be in violation at the full task force if it gets there. And then the next time they do it, it's a willful violation. And I do care about that, because while you can give them, you can say, okay, we'll trust you this time, there has to be a way to verify that trust. And the Supreme Court discusses this in City of San Jose. You don't have to give a good faith assumption to government officials that they act in the public's interest. It's the Public Records Act, and in this case, the Sunshine Ordinance, that allows you to verify that public officials act in the public's interest. I don't think I need to prove anything here about the fact that these are public records. They're by definition public records. And I would urge you to send this to the full task force. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Members, is there a motion?
I think that I'm going to support putting it up to the full task force, although this is not, to me, this is not like the last case. This is not as bad, let's say. And I don't think the controller's office response is quite where we'd want it to be. I don't think it's quite in compliance, especially on, stating the issues. The stating of the issues is really where a lot of these cases are problematic. But I do think it should go to the task force. That's my thought.
All right, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I don't want to. If someone else wants to respond before I make a motion, go ahead. But I'll make the motion. We find the records public. We have jurisdiction, and we send this to the task force to make a determination, final determination.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there public comment on that motion? Last call for public comment. Hearing no public comment, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll when you're ready?
Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Chair Hood, Chair Kinsey, sorry.
Aye. Okay.
The motion to send the matter to the full task force passes.
All right. When you're ready, Madam Clerk, would you please call the next item?
Can I just take out my earplugs for just a second?
When you're ready. Done.
Sorry about that. I just had to adjust them. Okay, we're ready?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Item number 7, file number 20042, complaint filed by Anonymous against Executive Director Elaine Forbes, the Port, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6729-5 by failing to keep or cause to be kept a daily calendar wherein it is recorded the time and place of each meeting or event attended.
All right. Do we still have Anonymous?
Yes, ma'am.
And do we have somebody from the port?
Hi, yes, the port is here.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Anonymous. When the show is ready, you may begin.
You ready, Anonymous?
Yep, let me know when I can go.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening yet again. This is case 20042 versus Elaine Forbes, Executive Director of the Port. We'll begin on item 7 PDF, page 23, which is footer page 387. Same exact request. It's a different date I sent it. I sent it on December 16th. The date range considered is November 10th to November 17th. I've offered almost the exact same offer of compromise to the director in this case. And let's just look at the examples. So next page, please, or next page again, I guess. I have a blank page here. DWG meeting is not a statement of issues discussed. What did you discuss at the DWG meeting? Next page. Bi-weekly with Brad does not tell us what Elaine Forbes discussed with Brad Benson. It is not a statement of issues. Also, they actually failed to provide the date and time. This is actually kind of a strange one. They provided, if you'll notice, it says Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, and I never asked for that. They're providing like the original calendar invite that created a series of meetings on someone's calendar. That's not what they have to provide. They have to provide the actual instance of a recurrence during the time I asked. And this is important. It's not just a technicality, because oftentimes meetings will change from their base recurrence metadata, and that week it'll be different time or something like that. So there's actually it's not just general statement of issues discussed. They also do not properly record the date and time of this meeting. They also don't provide the location of this meeting. I have no idea where this meeting with Brad took place. Kappa call with HMT. There are no attendees listed for this meeting. If this meeting was held outside of her own department, or we need to know who that was. Next page. There is a coffee with some person from some organization. There's no statement of issues. And the most egregious one, a meeting with her own name, Elaine Forbes. And this meeting, on the bottom of page 391, P391, is with the mayor's office. And this is the one I care most about. What is Sean Ellsburn, Chief of Staff of the mayor's office, discussing with Elaine Forbes? This is completely unacceptable, this entry right here. And yeah, I'm not going to give you the whole spiel about what 6729-5 says and all those things. These records are by definition public records, and therefore you should send it to the full task force. Thank you very much.
All right. When our representative from the port this evening, as soon as show's ready, you may begin.
Good evening, members of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Complaint Committee. My name is Leah Lacroix. I am the admin analyst and records custodian for the Port of San Francisco. The Port of San Francisco's Executive Director, Elaine Forbes, received complaint file number 20042 on March 2nd, 2020, alleging a failure to keep a compliant Prop G calendar. Director Forbes believes in transparency in government and works with her team to adhere to all open government and transparency requirements as articulated by the Sunshine Ordinance. Director Forbes' team works to ensure that all required meeting information is captured on her calendar and available upon request. Sometimes, however, required information is not provided by meeting organizers. Going forward, her team and the director will work to ensure that all required information is captured in advance of all meetings, including agendas and attendees, and are all in compliance with SF Administrative Code 67.29 through 5. We are, since receiving the initial complaint in December of 2019, we have reviewed the scheduling process out of an abundance of caution and out of our own due diligence to ensure that, again, any and all required information is accurately reflected in Director Forbes' Prop G calendar. And we ensure the committee and Anonymous that we take these matters quite seriously. I'm happy to respond to any questions from the committee, but I also just want to note that the examples provided by Anonymous, first with DWG, that is an entry from an external source. So if you look at it, required attendees, Director Forbes is included in the required attendees. Since then, we have made requests to all of our external partners who are placing items on our director's calendar to provide location, agenda, list of all people who will be attending that meeting to make sure that when items appear on Director Forbes' calendar, that it is Prop G compliant. The next example is the biweekly with Brad. That I think that one was mostly just as we turn documents over, sometimes you do kind of catch a mistake when converting files from the calendar entry into a PDF so that we can turn them over to the requester. And so that's what I believe happened in that case. Nevertheless, when things come back before us or if the documents are requested, we'll be sure to make sure that those smaller technical issues are captured, and so something like that doesn't happen again. And the same with the CAPA call on HNT. This is a calendar request from an external organization, and so that's why it did not reflect all of the items that are usually reflected within our calendars for Director Forbes. And yes, the same with the meeting listed as the subject is Elaine, location City Hall Room 200. That is appeared on our calendar from the mayor's office. So we will make sure that all items moving forward, especially since we received this complaint, have included all the required information. So again, happy to respond to any questions from the committee. I thank you so much for your time.
And questions, members of the committee?
I have a question for the respondent. Does the executive director keep a Prop G calendar separate, or are you? It sounded like you're kind of saying that she has one calendar and that also serves for Prop G purposes. So, is it two separate calendars that she keeps, or one calendar for both purposes?
It's one calendar. So one calendar is responding to all of her meetings.
Okay. I guess more than a subsequent point to make then is that the Prop G requirements put the requirement on the mayor, department head, or so forth and so on to keep or cause to be kept the entries for the Prop G calendar. And I heard in your response you talked about asking that people who organize meetings, you're going to ask them to include a topic, within their invitation. And while that would be great if they did that, ultimately the responsibility for doing so would fall on the department head. So, if people are putting things on the executive director's calendar and they aren't including that, then I think that it's important to point out that there's still responsibility for the executive director or her staff to include those items. So it's not, the responsibility doesn't lie on the person who's organizing the meeting. It ultimately, lies upon the department heads to include that on the Prop G calendar. And so if they're all being used in one, if you're only using one calendar, I just want to make the point clear that that needs to be added.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's all I had.
All righty, Member Schmidt.
Yes, I have one or two questions for the respondent to start with. It sounds like you're involved in responding to public records requests. Did I get that right? Your personal job?
Yes, that falls under some of my responsibilities.
Okay. And so is it part of your responsibilities to be the person or one of the people who creates a document which is called the Prop G calendar at the port?
So items that are like scheduling matters for the director are handled through her executive assistant.
Okay, so that's the scheduling for the director that's done through and when you say that, you're basically sort of talking about day-to-day scheduling, putting things on calendar, getting times, and getting the director the port to the meetings, correct? Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is fair to say.
Okay. Now, the Prop G calendar is a little bit of it's a little bit of an odd thing because it's not really like a scheduling calendar, but it's more of a backward-looking tracker as to what happened. Now, I understand they have a calendar system, and that seems to be reflected in what the documents were that were produced. But do you know if there's a process, any kind of process at the port, to create a document which shows what had happened, which is I'm going to call it the Prop G retrospective calendar. That's what Anonymous has pointed out here. That it doesn't appear that there's a retrospective calendar kept there. But I want to know if I'm mistaken. Is there such a calendar kept, and do you know who would keep that?
Again, those type of records would be maintained by the director's executive assistant, and the Prop G calendar for the director mirrors her kind of day-to-day calendar, like to use the example that you provided, the day-to-day calendar. And so at the time that these documents were requested, there was a little bit of I guess there was a little bit of like a difference between what was showing up on the director's like daily calendar, and so that kind of dictated what was showing up on the retrospective calendar. Again, to use your example, since receiving the complaint, and since that was around this time last year, we have reviewed the scheduling process, the calendaring process, to make sure that the information is reflected in her calendars.
And that's good. Hopefully, it's not just by coincidence that Mr. Anonymous, I'll call him, put this issue out there, and you all have responded, it sounds like. And I just want to emphasize that, this is sort of a different obligation. It's an obligation to keep a record of what happened in scheduled meetings, unscheduled meetings, etc. Now, I'm going to ask you one last question, which is, if somebody were tasked at the port to describe, to put in a statement of issues of meetings that already occurred, which is a Prop G requirement, as you can see in the statute, who would that person be?
That person would be I believe it would be a team of people. So it would be both the custodian of records, so our external affairs team, as well as the executive assistant. So it wouldn't fall under just one person. But again, if so yeah, happy to take that question back to our team.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate what you've done to answer my questions. That's all for me.
And I think just to follow up on Member Smith's question is, that's a question that I think we're going to ask you at the full task force hearing when it gets there. So just to have an answer ready would, I think, we'd be interested in that answer. Alrighty. Mr. McFarlane, if you have any rebuttals or last words on this item, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I just want to again thank the committee for your time in bringing this matter forward. I also just want to say that we at the port, we hear Anonymous's concerns around open government and transparency, and we just want to make sure that it's put on record that if there that we are committed to making sure that the process for our scheduling and property calendars at the port is fully compliant, and we take these matters very seriously, and we've worked hard since receiving the initial complaint to make sure that we will not be fined in violation. So again, thank you for your time.
All right.
Hang on. Anonymous, you ready?
Let me know when I begin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just want to point out a few things, both from the respondent's representative. She's not the respondent, right? She's the representative for the respondent, and your questions. And I think that the questions your members have asked are right on the money. I think they are very useful for the part of your jurisdiction, which is about educating the city. I do think that is an addition to finding whether or not they violated the law in these specific records, right? Unfortunately, I hear what the respondent's representative is saying, that they take things very seriously, they work really hard to do it. I have brought these kinds of complaints time and time again. Every agency says the same thing. And the problem here is that until I go figuratively, in this sense, kind of go after them, they don't really do anything. And this is not just this respondent, but in general. There's no reason that in however long this person has been the executive director of the port, until I came here, they never cared what the law says. And the excuse about other people's, I don't know why they even brought that up. They shouldn't say that. They should say, no, we take full responsibility. It's our property calendar. And as you know, the mayor and the police chief, for example, keep 2 calendars for this reason, for the exact reasons you just discussed, which is the one that is her responsibility, whether it's the mayor or Ms. Forbes, that one, they have to put in the after action review. Maybe they didn't know what they were going to discuss with Sean Ellsberg on November 14th, 2018, which is not what I requested anyway, but occurs every month. After it occurred, they were required to go and edit the Outlook entry no later than 3 business days after that meeting occurred and put in what the statement of issues discussed were, and if there were any attendees that were not within the department of the port, which I'm guessing there were, since it's in Sean Ellsberg's office. But and I don't think that kind of explanation that the respondent's representative gave has any bearing on whether or not they've already violated the law. So these are by definition public records, so please send it to the full task force.
30 seconds.
All righty. All right. Here, members, is there a motion how we would like to move this forward?
I would definitely, a point well taken from Anonymous, that it shouldn't have to be on people like yourself to be calling people on the fact that they don't really keep the calendar they're supposed to keep. it shouldn't be on you. And so, yeah, and I think we do need to put this before the task force, because that's the mechanism whereby we point out violations. And so I'll move that we find that these records are public, that the calendar that's supposed to be kept is a public record, and that this does need to be, it's in our jurisdiction, and it does need to be heard before the full task force.
All right, is there a second?
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there public comment on that motion? Seeing none, or hearing none rather. Madam Clerk, when you're ready, would you please call the roll?
Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Chair Hensy?
Aye.
Chair Hensy, aye. The motion to put before the full task force passes.
Whenever you're ready.
We're ready for item 8?
Whenever you're ready to call it.
Okay. Item number 8, file number 20044, complaint filed by Anonymous against Grant Colfax of the Department of Public Health for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.29-5 by failing to keep or cause to be kept a daily calendar wherein it is recorded the time and place of each meeting or event attended.
Okay. We have Anonymous with us still?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and the representative for Public Health?
Yes, this is Veronica Yan, Public Information Officer representing Department of Public Health.
Ready? Go ahead, Anonymous.
Thank you very much. This is Anonymous with case 20044, Anonymous versus Grant Colfax, the head of Public Health. We'll begin on item 8, PDF, page 56, which is footer page T470. Same exact request, same date ranges. We're just talking about the Prop G calendar, not any other calendars that may or may not exist. That'll come in other complaints. And it's not talking about future calendars either. He's obviously a department head. Dr. Colfax is the head of public health. They have their own 3-letter acronym, DPH. If you could go to the next page, P471, these are some examples. This is just like the mayor and the port, where they kind of talk with their other senior people and they don't tell us what they discussed. That's not acceptable. Huddle is not a statement of issues discussed. Call with, I'm going to butcher the name, Radwan, is not a statement of issues discussed with this person. Next page. As always, the Mayor Breed's monthly department head meeting. Dr. Colfax, regardless of whether London Breed is going to comply with the requirement, has a requirement in his calendar to record the statement of issues that were discussed. And that's, to be clear, that's not the statement of issues he discussed, but the statement of issues that were discussed at this meeting. So even if 99% of this meeting has nothing to do with public health, right, and if it was, I don't know, infrastructure, public works, whatever it is, those issues do need to be recorded because Dr. Colfax attended that meeting. Next page. What problem was with this? Mark MHC Prep. No clue what any of that means. Next one says behavioral health and housing. Now this one might be compliant, right? Maybe behavioral health and housing, this task force will determine is a sufficient statement of issues discussed. I don't know. That's your call. Next page, lunch with Tracy, completely unacceptable. Anton Weekly, completely unacceptable. And I just want to be very clear. If in any of these meetings, if not every single person attending was a member, was essentially one of his direct or indirect subordinate employees, all of the attendees, unless there's more than 10, do need to be recorded. So, they also gave you maybe 5 or 6 days ago, well, here's all the statement of issues. And I would say, one, that does not cure a violation because they had to do this within 3 business days. 2, why wait 1 year to give me this information? I assume it should have happened a while ago when you found out about the complaint. 3, and this is the most worrying thing, because even if it goes before your full task force, you rule that these are not statement of issues discussed, and it goes to compliance, you'll eventually have to find out there that what they think is a statement of issues discussed is still not a statement of issues discussed, even when they explicitly correct it. So they think that for meetings like Huddle, they can just say things that were relevant that day. I don't know the exact wording they use, but it's something like that. Salient items of the day. No, that may be what you planned to discuss at this meeting, but after the meeting was over, for example, if I look at last week's Huddle, I'm guessing Dr. Colfax is discussing, the issue he's discussing is COVID-19 lockdowns, right? That's an issue being discussed. But we do need, after the meeting is over, once everyone figured out what actually happened, a statement of issues discussed within 3 business days of the meeting happening. These are by definition public records, so I would ask that you please send this to the full task force. Thank you very much.
All right. Ms. Yin isn't when Cheryl's ready. You may go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Vian.
No, apologies. I think I was on mute. Thank you. Good evening, members of the task force, and good evening, Anonymous. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be here. I want to say that we at the Department of Public Health definitely took this complaint and matter very seriously. And since we've received the complaint, we are making sure that all the calendar entries are up to Prop G standards. At the time that we initially received the request, Dr. Colfax's Prop G calendar included both his handwritten calendar in addition to his electronic calendar, and that with that combination, we knew that the electronic calendar permitted sufficient space for the meeting descriptions and meeting attendees. And at that time, during the Dr. Colfax's first year, it was a transition from the previous director's workflow, given that the clerical support staff was still there. It was a transition of workflow. And at the time, I believe it was December, when the new clerical staff was working to support Dr. Colfax. And since that time, we have now, up until this moment, we have fully transitioned over to the electronic Outlook calendar. And as Anonymous mentioned, we provided an addendum including the general statement of issues discussed at the respective meetings to the best of our abilities since the initial request. And after we have gone back to make sure that the handwritten calendar and the electronic calendar corresponded in terms of meetings and meeting names, meeting titles. And now DPH understands, after consulting with, after understanding what the Prop G calendar definition is and speaking with our city attorney, we now understand that Prop G calendars are definitely, we agree that Prop G calendars are public records, and we know that moving forward, we will do our best to make sure that our Prop G calendar will include every meeting or event that an official attended, and so that is Dr. Colfax, and we will do our best and make sure that the time, place, and name of attendees will be included, and the meeting description will have at least a general statement of issues discussed, and will ensure compliance moving forward.
Who's got that background noise? Has somebody got a window open? Because it's really difficult to hear.
It's not me over here.
May have been the respondent. I think that's when it started. 'Cause I hear it too, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It was very difficult to hear you, Ms. Van.
Do you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you guys still hear the window? I heard the window when I was on mute as well. But it sounds like the window is not there anymore. Would you guys,
It's gone.
how would you like me to move forward?
Yeah.
I was able to understand everything, but it was just a little bit much in the background.
Yeah. Members, any questions?
I do have a question for the respondent. You noted, and I think the anonymous noted as well, that you provided an addendum with what you believe as the general issues discussed. But I think to the broader point, that should be included in everything in the Prop G calendar. So my question is, have you gone back to Dr. Colfax's calendar and included a general statement of issues discussed for all Prop G items, not just the ones that Anonymous happened to request?
That is something that we are working on. It has been, since we responded to the request in December 2019, it's, I guess we could say it's been a year. And so the executive assistant to Dr. Colfax is doing her best and diligently going back to make sure that all other calendars that pertain to the Prop G calendar is up to the Prop G standards to the best of her ability.
Okay, that's good, because I just want to be sure, because to Anonymous's point that he's made a few times tonight, and I certainly agree that it shouldn't take a formal complaint to prompt compliance. And so I think we want to see going forward is not just compliance with his specific requests, but compliance across the board. So any future person who makes a request shouldn't have to wait months or a year or what have you to get those types of important pieces of information included with their official response. And so I just wanted to make sure that that's occurring. That's all.
Member Schmidt.
Yes. Again, a question to the respondent's representative. So you're involved in responding to the records request specifically, is that correct? As part of your job?
Correct.
Okay. And the process by which the Prop G calendar is generated, who is involved in that process? That sounds like that's a separate person, maybe the executive assistant. Who does that?
You mean by which the process where the meeting is, once the meeting is completed, who will go back and fill out the meeting description per se?
Okay. So that's who is going in and filling out the statement of the issues that were discussed at a meeting, correct?
So the executive assistant will be working together with the Director Colfax to make sure once those meetings have finished or have been completed.
Okay, so they take what they apparently they're working off of I'll call it the pre-calendar, and then they will, after an event happens, they will put in entries to describe what happened at the meeting. Is that your understanding of how this process is now going to happen in the future?
I don't have a strong understanding of how exactly their workflow will be in terms of when they will have their discussions. But I understand now that the director has fully transitioned over to the electronic Outlook calendar, because before, when the initial request came into the office, at that time, Director Colfax had a handwritten calendar and an electronic calendar. But now, given the circumstances, he has fully transitioned over to the electronic calendar. So that way, it will be easier for not only easier for the work remotely and such, but also that will make it easier for to jot down the time, place, and name of attendees and all those who have attended or have declined, and have a general statement of the overall meeting that happened.
Okay, thank you. A question for the requester, the petitioner, anonymous.
Yes,
and this is sort of a general question that may apply to not just this case, but it's somewhat of a legal question. This requirement is a little bit unusual because it asks that agencies create something that they may not have any interest in creating otherwise. So it's an affirmative new obligation that is imposed by the ordinance. Now, there's sort of a general principle in state law that says that agencies should not be asked to create new documents in response to a Public Records Act request. Do you see any conflict between that general principle of state law and this affirmative obligation that's put into the ordinance here in the city and county of San Francisco?
Thank you. That's actually a really interesting question, and there's a three-step response. The first is that the CPRA does not prohibit agencies from creating records in response to a request, and therefore city law can do whatever it wants to. But the more interesting response is actually the CPRA has at least one case where it does require records to be created and not just disclosed. It's a very unusual portion of the CPRA. It's called the Enterprise Systems Catalog. And I've actually brought those before the city before. The CPRA actually requires the city to create a record of all of their enterprise systems, which is to say their IT systems, and then in a certain way, with a certain format, with a certain set of minimum requirements, very similar to Prop G. The third prong in my response is that I would respectfully disagree with one thing you said. They are not required to create this in response to my request. In fact, a record they created after my request would not be a responsive record exactly under the CPRA. Prop G's requirement is slightly different. It says you must create this record, whether or not anyone requests it, within 3 business days after the entry of the meeting date. So even if I don't request it, they're required to create it. And in fact, it's in their retention policies, they have to retain it. So I don't believe there's any conflict, because unless state law says thou shalt not, right? It says cities, local agencies shall not disclose or shall not create. A local agency, in this case, the voters of San Francisco, can create any law that doesn't conflict with state law. And the CPRA does, in fact, actually require you to create at least one type of record. So.
Okay. And so clearly what you just said would apply to the requirement that the Prop G calendars be created. My sort of follow-up question is, does that necessarily give the task force jurisdiction to order that records be created that may not exist.
Okay, I see what your point is. Oh, sorry.
Our
go ahead.
enforcement jurisdiction. Do you see any problem with, state precedent? Do you think that the same support that you just gave us would give us that jurisdiction?
Yes, and that's because the jurisdiction of this task force is not created by state law. It's created by local law. In fact, state law has no corresponding, there's no analogy to what you guys do in state law. And I believe you have jurisdiction over violations of the Sunshine Ordinance or the CPRA or the Brown Act. And I would argue this is a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance. Now, you said something specifically, can you compel them to create a record? I would say I don't know the answer to that. I think you can find them in violation. If you can go to compliance, you can find out whether you agree, whether they've now complied or not. And if you disagree, I believe you would have to, I believe it's under 67.30, refer the matter to the district attorney or the attorney general for enforcement. Or under 67.34, if you believe that the violation, in this case, it's a department head or elected official, and since it is such a person, if you believe the violation is willful after you've made an order of determination, you would also refer to the Ethics Commission. So I don't think you can actually compel them to make a record. You would merely find that their failure to do so is a violation of the law and ask these other parties who can compel compliance to do so. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for pointing out that there is to compel is a process as opposed to something that we could do here. It certainly, I know what you mean. It takes a lot of steps. Yeah. Okay, and you said about enterprise systems a moment ago. Was there a Court of Appeal case that you were thinking of when you answered my question about that?
Nope, I can do research on this, but I frankly did not expect you to ask that in this complaint. But if you would like me to present something on that, I can. But I don't know of any Court of Appeal case. So.
Well, it might be something that sticks in my craw that we may want to know that we're supposed to be ordering things that I mean, if I saw that, there's another area where the state law has no problem with, ordering the creation of new records, and you had case authority, that would be very helpful to me, because I just want to make sure that, we're not going beyond the bounds of what we should be doing. So, at some point, that would be very helpful. Yes, because that's not a case that I know of. I have no further.
I'm happy to document that.
Okay. No further questions for either witness.
All right.
If I may just quickly, just to add just a little point to the discussion here. I think there's some good questions that Member Schmidt asked. But I'd probably point out also that obviously as the task force, we hear cases that deal with a variety of open meetings violations as well. And so obviously those aren't in the CPRA. And so I think that we would have jurisdiction here because the Prop G requirement is included within the Sunshine Ordinance, and then the task force has a collective responsibility to help uphold the entire ordinance, as it were. So even though parts of it are drawn on the CPRA, parts of it are also drawn on the Brown Act for the open meetings, and parts may be just very specific to the local ordinance. And so I kind of see the Sunshine Ordinances as a catch-all ordinance that includes references to a variety of state laws, and then obviously it then has some of its own requirements. And so since this Prop G section is within the Sunshine Ordinance, I'm comfortable, the task force does have jurisdiction over it. But I think that's an interesting line of thought and is worth exploring, and perhaps worth exploring further.
Okay, Miss Guillen, do you have any rebuttal last remarks?
I would like to say that again, the Department of Public Health understands that now fully understands, or since understanding what Prop G calendars must entail, we have diligently provided with an addendum the general statement of issues discussed. We, as the requester or complainant mentioned, we have provided, I guess, statements that may not be fully in detail. However, that is, during those huddles, we just have no way of capturing what those matters of topics were discussed that day from a year ago. However, moving forward, we are going to be sure to include that at least 3 days after the meeting, and make sure that the meeting description of the calendar invite on the Outlook calendar for the Prop G calendar specifically will include, again, the general statement of matter discussed, or even the agenda that was marked for that specific meeting, in addition to the time, place, and names of attendees that attended the meeting. So we will be sure to ensure compliance moving forward.
All right, Anonymous.
Hang on.
Thank you very much. Let me know when I should begin.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to address Member Schmidt's issues about creating a record, and I did Google it and I found it. So it is Senate Bill 272, which adds a section to the California Public Records Act requiring local agencies to create a catalog of enterprise systems by July 1, 2016 with annual updates. And there's a minimum set of requirements that says they have to have what information is collected, the name of the system, the manufacturer, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, state law does have, and it's within the California Public Records Act, and there is, in fact, a law that does that. I do believe, however, you don't have to reach that question, even if state law didn't require it, unless the respondent could show a state law that prohibits it, or a court of appeals case that showed that struck down creation of records. I don't think that you lose jurisdiction until I go to court and prove you have the jurisdiction. I think, in my opinion, that wouldn't be right. There's nothing that, as far as I know, has struck down Prop G as a thing that you can require of officials, and that's because the CPRA does not say this is the only thing you can do. The Sunshine Ordinance could ask people to do all sorts of things, and they would be completely legal unless they conflicted with state law. And even if it is something completely else, like keeping an index of records, which is a requirement of the Sunshine Ordinance, that doesn't mean it's invalid merely because the CPRA doesn't also require that. On the agenda items that have been presented here, again, I think one of the important things will be here is I want to be very clear. I don't think I'm asking you to order them to go back and correct the old calendars. I actually don't think you have the authority to do that. And if that's what Member Schmidt is getting at, I agree with him. No, I'm just asking that you find that they violated the law. Then they should comply with the law now that they're on notice, actual notice of what the law is. And if they don't comply after that, then I will ask that you find them, make a finding of willful violation of the law and send Dr. Colfax to the Ethics Commission and for prosecution of the district attorney. And that is why I bring these complaints, right? Is that I prove it once, and then if they keep doing it and they don't listen to you, then those are the other enforcement mechanisms. But I do agree. I don't think this task force has the authority to order creation of those old events, merely to determine that those events were not in compliance with the law. Thank you very much.
All right. Members, motion. Any motion discussed?
Sure. I'll move that we do in fact have jurisdiction, that the requested records are public, and to refer to the full task force for a hearing.
All right. Is second.
Yeah, I'll second. And if I could just make a real quick clarification that to Anonymous, what I was talking about is more of the general obligation to be creating a new document, I wasn't really talking about going back in and making, augmentations or changes to substance in old records. So just to give you a sense of what I was talking about. But more importantly, I second the motion.
Alrighty. It's been moved and seconded. Is there public comment on that motion? Public comment? Hearing no public comment. Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and call the roll?
Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Chair Hensy?
Aye.
Chair Hensy, aye. The motion is sent to the full task force passes. So that is it with cases. We have one further item of discussion.
Alrighty. Would you please call that item when you're ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Item number 9, discussion regarding new complaint form. And so what I did in the packet was include the PDF. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I included the PDF complaint form that people can fill out by hand or type and can submit either by fax, email, or in person or mail. And I also included the complaint form that can be submitted as a PDF, which is the complaint form you generally see as the very first page of what your agenda packets would be. Now, we also got from Anonymous a revised complaint form that he did from last month's submission. And then Victor came up with a draft, and I included that. So there's like 4 complaint forms. So I wanted everybody to see everything. So that's where we have to begin our discussion.
Okay. I'm going to give each party a couple minutes to talk about this. So, Victor, would you like to talk a little bit about your complaint form and the revisions that you made? Any specifically you want us to be aware of?
Give me a moment. I wasn't planning on saying anything today, but let me find my version of the forms and I can walk through it. If you want to take a look at something else while I'm looking for it, you can go
It's
ahead
item 9. It's
I
item
think it's
9,
a page
Victor, in the
number.
packet. Oh.
of my item.
Oh.
And Vic, do you recall offhand, did you revise Anonymous's second form, or was it his first one?
The first one, I think.
Um,
Is that correct, Victor? The first one?
the first one, but I am not seeing mine right here at the moment. Oh, here it goes. Sorry.
I thought it was in there.
663, isn't it? Is that yours, Victor?
Actually, that's not mine. That's just a checklist, but I actually revised our complaint form to make it simplified and to reference the checklist. And I consolidated a lot of the checklists to put them in numerical order and to eliminate some of the more uncommon issues that most people would not understand. Because it's a matter of some of it can be too detailed and would confuse the majority of the general public. So some of the more obscure issues I didn't put in there. I tried to keep it generic to the most commonly violated issues.
Right.
Otherwise, a person who's never done this before would never read through the whole thing.
Right. Okay. Anonymous, is there anything you would like to say about your second version that we should be aware of?
Sure. Thank you very much. The second version is on page PDF 11 and bottom footer page P659. I believe I took your feedback, which is it's too long. It can't be 5 pages. No one's going to read that. I agree with you. It's 3 pages now. The font is much bigger. And it's written in a way to serve kind of both purposes of this task force, not just to get the person's records to them or to find the legal violations, if any, but to educate everyone. And so it's written in the form of a Bill of Rights. This was actually requested by some person at public comment. This is another request someone made at public comment, which is people don't know what it is that they are owed under the law. And so obviously this is paraphrasing. This is my personal opinion, which may or may not agree with this task force as a whole's opinion. So you just may not agree that you have these rights. But I phrased them using plain English instead of legalese. That was another feedback I got. And tried to just make it a lot simpler. And then I think there's other feedback from member Highland, maybe, to add a timeline and to add some more kind of general stuff. And that's on page 3. So you can see a timeline of events, citations to prior orders of determination or petitions or ethics commission cases or court cases. So I think this should be a lot easier to understand than at least what I gave you the first time. And I did eliminate a few of the more obscure ones that maybe only I care about, but I tried to keep the rest of the stuff in here. So.
All right, and thank you as always for all your work. I'll say that up front. Members, our thoughts, any edits?
I guess I'll start. I was going to say that, I really, really like this revision that Anonymous submitted. I kind of shared the same concerns that, if we make it sound too complex or have too many pages, that it almost perhaps could even deter people from filing something because they think they have to fill out a 5-page form or something. So I like the way that this reads. I think it's a lot more intuitive for someone who isn't as experienced perhaps with making these types of requests or these complaints to the task force. So, I mean, offhand, I don't see anything that stands out that I think we need to change. I'm really supportive of this, and I think it also helps serve the purpose of giving the task force a good place to start and kind of guide the discussion, because obviously as of right now we're not receiving those legal memos anymore, which used to serve maybe, let's say, a similar type of purpose of helping to guide the discussion when it reaches the task force. And so I do appreciate how this form does that and asks kind of some pertinent questions for all the parties involved. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Member Schmidt, suggestions?
Yeah, I think that as I noted, this is a wonderful contribution we're receiving from someone who's a member of the public, who's, it's not on anyone's payroll to do this. Right. And so that is, I think a lot of this is an upgrade. I do want to also really recognize what Victor says. Let's try to make this as terse as possible.
As terse?
Just that we don't want to, put too much extra verbiage, especially like the special cases that don't come up very often. The one thing I'm not sure if we're going to say that part of the mission here is to give a Bill of Rights. I'm not opposed to the idea, although I'm not quite sure if we want to be too assertive about it. because then we're sort of like putting, putting people in a position where they think they get something that maybe they don't get. We want to be not pushing that too much. And it's possible that we would separate out the concept of the Bill of Rights from the actual form. And maybe it could be enumerated in the same way so someone could follow. I'm not sure. Maybe it should be together. I'm kind of mixed about that. But yeah, I think those are the thoughts I have, and it does seem like it's getting pretty close to being a good product.
Yeah,
I have a question. I mean, I'm just the administrator here, but I'm looking at this and he's saying custodian of record, and I don't see a definition for custodian of record. Did people know that that's what they were supposed to do? Just an observation. I don't, the custodian must give you a copy of the records. People understand what a custodian of record is?
maybe can we have some maybe terms that we define? Because
Deanna, I can't hear you.
can we have like a glossary of terms that we might have to define? Because I can't think of a simpler way to say custodian of records.
You can just say the department didn't give you the documents you received, because
Yeah,
in
that's a better
essence,
word.
it's the department who's responsible and not a single person. They assign a custodian, but in essence, it's the department.
Right. Okay, that's good. I like that. Getting to the member six comment about the Bill of Rights.
Chair Hinsey, may I say a word or two?
Oh, sure. Go ahead now, Victor. I was going to give you.
Yes. I note this entire portion is mainly geared towards public records. We don't have anything regarding public meetings in this format. I don't think we need to create one because it's very hard to cover every potential error. But I think the majority of our complaints are regarding public records, and this is good. The other part of it is, I don't see a way for us to translate this into an online submittal format, because we're using Google Forms for online submittals. And generally, when we receive online complaints in that format, we just have to go back to them and ask them for additional information anyways. So I'm not sure if you really want to try to translate this into a Google form.
Are there not fields that could be? Oh.
Yeah, Google Forms are very simple, and I don't believe we would be able to get all this into a comprehensive online submittal format. My preference is that they submit everything on a Word or a PDF format. We do get them online via Google Forms, but if that gets too complex, we just go back to them anyways.
Well, then how do we feel about having two separate complaint forms? That's not necessarily a great thing. And then you're saying, Victor, that the online form would be different than this physical complaint.
Online form is more of in line of questions and answers. It doesn't ask for as much information as our paper form does.
So it's different anyway. It's different now. They're different forms.
If I could jump in, I guess I would have a concern with having two separate forms. One being easier than the others, because I think if I were a member of the public, I would just, want to answer the one that asks less questions just to get through it more quickly. And while that might get you through the form more quickly, I don't think that also the case as much. So I think Victor's point is well taken that I'm not sure that the complexity that some of these cases require lends itself well to a Google form. And so, at least as far as the complaint form for public records, keeping the meetings portion as a separate thing. But for the records portion, I think it's helpful to have perhaps just one and some version of what we're looking at now be that one. Because I think if we just try to make it simpler for Google Forms, people are going to just elect to use that one that's easier. And then we lose a lot of the value of having this more complex one in there. Like, it really helps answer a lot of the questions that we're going to have and helps both the complainant and the respondent prepare more efficiently for these hearings.
I agree. I also have concerns about having two separate forms, especially if one of them is so much more complex than the other. Thoughts on how we might adapt this form for Google or for what we have online?
Well, at this point, I'm not sure we can do a Google form. I just think that might not be the best way. Maybe there's some other platform that this would be more easy to adapt into, but absent that, and we could always do the old-fashioned way of a fillable PDF. I think most people can download a PDF. You can check boxes on the fillable PDF. You can type into a fillable PDF, save it, and then attach that back to their complaint. And as an aside, I think that's an interesting point that Member Schmidt rose a little bit earlier about a Bill of Rights. Might be a good thing to have and a good topic, but I'm not sure we necessarily want to intermix that concept with the complaint form. So maybe language or discussion about a Bill of Rights, while potentially important, is almost, I think, to me, a separate discussion, and maybe we just focus, for the sakes of this discussion right here, on adapting it as just a complaint form, and then talk about perhaps Bill of Rights type language in a separate discussion. Kind of pull that part out.
I agree. Okay, I'm specifically looking interested in feedback from our administrative staff on how we might work with this form to convert it to an online version that's more user friendly. Given what we have, the online platforms we have to work with. Victor, Cheryl, thoughts?
Yeah, the PDF fillable format's probably is the easiest thing to do. We would just, I'm not familiar with how to create that and place it on a online submission format, but we can talk to our IT people about that. The other issue is that, there is really no limit on the way people can submit their complaint. They can just write us a letter. They're not required to use our form, even though we like to have it. They can do it in a letter format. They can call us and submit a complaint verbally if they wanted to, and we would have to accept it. They're, any format complaint, we're supposed to take it.
Right. They're not going to necessarily use this form anyway.
I'm going to just say that, yeah, single form is the way to go here. And yeah, they don't have to use the form, no question about it. In terms of the Bill of Rights, after hearing what Matthew says, I think we can have a document which doesn't necessarily explicitly say, this is your Bill of Rights, et cetera, but it still would be infused, I'll say, with the questions that will prompt people. And those questions will be, asking people, do you think this, do you think this went wrong? Do you think that went wrong? And so they will be sort of expressing that, yeah, these are the kind of problems that you can complain about. And that's, so check this box if you think that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a sort of a middle ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. And that might just be tweaking some of the language in the first paragraph saying, you have the following rights regarding, not that I don't agree with that concept, but I don't think we necessarily have to have some type of preamble type statement to it. I think just leaving it as a complaint form with the questions, it gets to the heart of the issue without having to otherwise say it.
Okay. So, how would we like to? What are our next steps with this?
Well, I'm thinking that maybe based on what we discussed here, and I think that kind of, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that perhaps, Victor and Cheryl can work on, giving this form to, sounds like perhaps their IT folks, and see if they can work it into some type of, fillable PDF form that we can, then send on to the full task force to, try out and see what they think.
Okay. That
What do you guys think?
That sounds to me, Victor, Cheryl.
And yes, the cover page of the form itself, I did make some edits to it, and I would appreciate your feedback. It's not in the packet today. It's the base form, the cover page with what is your complaint, your name, and all that type of information. I did make some edits because it has questions. Do you want a hearing? And that's not an option anymore. Everyone gets a hearing. So
all right.
A few outdated issues on the form that I tried to correct.
We will put that in the package for the full task force when it goes there. All right. Madam Clerk, would you like us to do this in the form of a motion? Or
I think the chair would probably want some sort of a motion.
all right.
I'm thinking the chair of the SOTF, Chair Walsh,
Yes.
might want to see a motion.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll move then. I'll move that we ask the administrator to adapt the revised complaint form that was submitted by Anonymous into a fillable PDF form to, do we want to say this? At this point, I'm going to say to strike the introductory paragraph, just because I think that's kind of to the heart of what we talked about, the Bill of Rights stuff. I don't think we need to have that in there. And then present that to the full task force for review.
All right. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there public comment on the complaint form?
Am I allowed to speak or no?
I will like to speak, yes.
Hang on, gotta get this timer.
Oh.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Anonymous again. I think if you are going to strike the first paragraph, I would suggest it be a little bit more nuanced in this, because some of that first paragraph you probably do want there, and not remove the whole thing, and you probably want to change the title of part 1 as well. I would strongly suggest, I want to be very clear, I don't want there to be any kind of misleading here. I am not, third party here. I'm a person with an agenda. My agenda absolutely is to ensure every person has maximum lawful public access to meetings and information. And so I hope that the full task force, when they review the actual wording you have here, and I assume they would have to make a motion to approve it, that this now becomes your words, right? It's not just me saying this anymore. It's the task force saying this. And you may not agree with everything I've got on here. I think, as the task force knows, I am trying to very strictly enforce each and every word in the Sunshine Ordinance. So I would urge the full task force to fully read what is in here and make sure if you don't agree with me on any of this, it's not in the form when it becomes your voice and not mine. Thank you.
All right, we will go over it with a fine-tooth comb. Yes. Okay. Any?
If I may, I'll I think it's a good point about the title. I think instead of notice of public records rights under the Sunshine Ordinance, I think if we change the title to maybe suggested complaint form for public records under the Sunshine Ordinance, that might be a little better for describing what this document is. And I adding the word suggested to make it clear that obviously that folks don't have to use this, right? We want to as Victor talked about, that while this is a good form to use, they certainly aren't required by any means to use it.
That's good wording, I think.
So what do we want to call it?
Suggested complaint form for public records requests under the Sunshine Ordinance.
5 minutes.
Does that sound okay to you, Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Suggested complaint form. What?
Suggested complaint form for public records requests under the Sunshine Ordinance.
That's perfect. All right. You got that, Cheryl?
I'm writing it down.
Okay. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing none, would you please call the roll when you're ready?
Yes. Oh, shoot. Never mind. Member Yankee.
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Chair Hinsey.
Aye.
Chair Hinsey, aye. The motion to move that, let's see. Complaint Committee asks the administrator to adapt the revised complaint form into a fillable PDF form, strike the introductory paragraph, and present to the full task force for review.
With the revised title.
With the revised title, okay.
Yep.
All right. And thank you very much to Anonymous and administrative staff for your work on this. I think it's the form that'll serve the public well, and we thank you for that. We have to thank for that. So, all right. Clerk, would you please call the next item?
Okay, hang on a second. Item number 10, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Complaint Committee.
All right. Does anybody have any announcements?
I do not.
Dean?
Nothing.
Deanna?
Nothing for me, administrative staff.
We'll be, just to remind everyone that next Monday we have the orientation. Matt, I think you probably saw the emails regarding you and Member Highland coming into the meeting kind of late. You saw those?
Yes. I may or may not be able to make it at 4. I'll see what I can do. Depends on my schedule that day. So.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we are having an orientation on Monday, and then next Tuesday, the following day, we are having the Compliance and Amendments Committee. And then we will have and I will be on vacation that Wednesday and Thursday before Christmas. And then I will be back to rock and roll that following Monday.
All right. Enjoy. All right. Do we have an agenda out yet for that? on
For the
Monday.
orientation?
Right.
Yeah, Bruce and I just finalized it today,
Okay.
and I'm going to post it on Thursday. Tomorrow I'm going into the office, make sure I have everything, and then I'll continue working as I normally do. And then Thursday I will post it. Thursday I'll prepare materials for the Compliance and Amendments Committee, and then Friday I will post that agenda.
All right.
Okay.
Quick question.
I'll be in the office if you guys. What? Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to ask a quick question. I know over the last couple of meetings you said you were having technical difficulties that was preventing you from posting audio and various like.
That's been worked out. That was well, it was citywide for a bit, and it made posting minutes next to impossible. So once it got settled, I posted everything I was supposed to post.
Gotcha.
So
that's not
nothing.
going to be a problem going forward.
Yeah, everything is fine.
Okay.
It's all
cool.
worked itself out.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yeah.
All right. Public comment on this item. Hearing no public comment, Madam Clerk, would you please call the next item?
Item number 11, adjournment. I have 8:01 p.m. Who moves to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
It's adjourned. Second.
All right. The ayes.
Okay. Moved by member Yankee, second by member Schmidt to adjourn the meeting at 8:01 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to turn off the recording now.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, all.